Welcome back to the channel. I'm Neil, and today we're going to talk about monitoring and observability. Monitoring and observability. What is monitoring? Collecting an analysis and some tools to help you do the job, and alerts, or how not to see a sea of red. What does it mean to you? Hey, stick your comments just below. Give me some clues as to what you're thinking about observability, monitoring and alerts and all those sort of things. What do I mean by monitoring? I'm talking about metrics, or metrics if you can't talk proper. And metrics are the things that we need to monitor. No kidding. And then there's the logs. Logs tell us a bit more detail about stuff, like errors maybe, or just what's going on, situational awareness. A bit like flying a helicopter, you need to be able to see out the window to see what's coming at you. Or tracing. Tracing is a little bit of a puzzle that not everyone touches upon, but I shall tell you about more in a moment. So why does it matter? Well, in a software delivery team, having fast feedback means that you can fix stuff faster. If it's broke, fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I can't stress how important that second step is. So what is monitoring? Well, there's logs. Like I said, this is about the detail of the stuff. Logs can be collected in a number of ways, and you've got to find where they are first. Some of them are on the servers, server logs. Application. What's our application doing? Our application's running along and it throws some logs out. It says, hey, someone logged in. Hey, someone's password's expired. Hey, we tried to access this thingy on the database and they don't have access. Or somebody did access the thingy on the database and there was loads of rows. All sorts of things can be logged by the application. It's entirely up to the person writing the application as to what they log. What about access? If you're running web servers, then you might be interested to see who's accessing your application, where they're accessing from. Is it the same IP address? What pages did they visit? All these sort of things can be in the logs. And errors. Most important really, that we want to know when errors occur and to have detail about what the server knew when that error occurred. That will help the developers fix the problem. And then we're on to metrics. Metrics, mainly numbers, all the way down. So we've got numbers about performance. Now, how fast are we flying in our helicopter today? How far are we accelerating towards the ground? Or just going up, taking off? The sessions. Maybe we want to record how many customers are using our application at once, because the more customers that are using it more once, the more load. A bit like a helicopter where if you've got more passengers, you need to have a bit more energy in order to lift everybody into the air. And errors. You can count how many errors there are. Not all errors are fatal. Some of them might just be warnings, and some of them might be really bad. Errors like percentage of disk used. You might have a warning at about 80%, and you might have errors at 90%. At that point, you really want to know about that so that you can avert disaster. And dashboards, somewhere to display this information so that you can see at a glance what the heck's going on if you need to. Great when we were in offices, maybe not so important now, but still good for an overview. Tracing. This is this more advanced stuff that I was talking about earlier. Tracing an application, like synthetic journeys. You may well already have some synthetic journeys from your user acceptance testing. Testing, right? It's an in-depth thing where you can spot how fast things are going. If you've got a particularly long process, then when I say long, I mean milliseconds, right? How long it took to get through each thing. How long it took to do this function. How long it took to do that function. More often than not, if you're looking at applications, then it's going to be the disk that's the bottleneck. So that might be related to the database calls. How long a SQL query took. Can we make that SQL query go even faster by optimizing the language perhaps? And basic level stack traces is a sign of application tracing. When something crashes, do we get an application stack trace along with that crash or error message? Then that gives us a lot of clues on how to fix the thing. We have some tools to make this job easier for ourselves. We've got the data server, where the stuff is, data collection, where we get it from, and data display, where we are going to show these stuff to ourselves, our users, our management, so that we can do something useful with it. So starting with the tools, let's look at Prometheus. It's quite a widely used tool, and it's very good at looking after metric data, all those numbers. Numbers. Not so good at logs, but it can probably do that as well. The Prometheus server gets the stuff, the data, gets published to it. It can either drag it out of where it needs to go from, or it can be pushed to the Prometheus server, depending on the collector. Then the server stores that in hopefully a very, very fast database, because metrics can come in really, really fast. A bit like flying all those spots and those flies on your windscreen, right? And then something, in order to visualize that, can then be hanging off the end of it. The ELK stack, elastic stack, a number of other terms it's got. ELK stands for Elastic, Log or Logstash, and Grafana, because that's the three major components. Elastic server for storing the stuff, Logstash for gathering the stuff, and Grafana for visualizing the stuff. Elastic server is better at storing logs than metrics, but again, it can store both. So the first step is data collection, where we're going to get these logs and data from. Prometheus relies on collectors to do this. There's also a push gateway where you can stuff metrics and logs into Prometheus. Sticking with data collection, with Elasticstack, we have beats and other integrations to get the data. And so the third piece is visuals, your dashboards. So the out of the box with Prometheus is Grafana. Grafana is a separate package, so we can use that with other types of data as well, if we want to. And Elasticstack, as I mentioned, comes with Grafana. This is really good at searching through logs, but it can also display graphs and other metric data too. But what are we going to do with this data? Well, how do we know when something goes wrong? To find that out, we have alerts, usually based on metrics, and these are then based on a baseline. A baseline is nothing more than what does normal look like. If you know what normal looks like, then you know what busy looks like and what slow looks like. Both of these can be important when tuning your servers and capacity. Alerts, on the other hand, will alert us to something being abnormal. And usually you want to know if something's too busy. If we're doing automatic scaling, then when something's really busy, we can automate the scaling based on how busy something is. When something gets really busy, then we might want a human to look at it. One thing to bear in mind about alerts, though, is not to have too many of them. If you have too much noise, then people will just start to ignore it, and they're no longer delivering any value to you, your business, or your application team. It also means that if you have a dashboard having a status of things, you just see a sea of red, which is very disheartening. So only make sure that things are red if they really need to be read. There's nothing worse than something being read and going, it's always like that. Everyone just ignores it, and then when it's really read, stuff really hits the fan. If you're enjoying my content, please like this video and consider subscribing, and also continue with this course and add much more information and deliver the value that you need. But if you've got any comments for me, put them below, and that will help for future ideas of other videos. So in summary then, we looked at Prometheus, which looks a bit like this. It's got the collectors, it's got the data server, and it's got the visualizations. We also took a quick look at the elk stack, which is a similar pattern. You've got the collectors, the beats on the side there, collecting the server with the metrics and the logs all stored, and then visualization on the end with Grafana, or perhaps Grafana as well. In this video I've only scratched the surface. There are lots of other metric tools and gathering that you might be using in your current environments, such as Sensu or Nagios, maybe even AWS CloudWatch if you're in the cloud, SolarWinds if you've got some budget to spend on licenses, or Microsoft System Center if you happen to be using a lot of Windows servers. And that's it. You're set up ready for takeoff with your monitoring and alerting. If you've got any more questions, put them in the comments below, and as always, may all your deployments be smooth.